Much to savor. So much. Here's just a few things on my list in no particular order. Swimming. I know some of you think I'm utterly nuts, but 3 days a week I get up before 5 and I go swimming. And that shock as my body hits the cold water, and then the way the body stretches and feels powerful as you cut through the water, and the way it supports and holds and caresses, the laughs with my teammates, the relief when we're done, and that hot shower that feels so amazing. Swimming is definitely on my list. Sunlight through the trees. I don't know why, but dappled sunlight never fails to make me slow down and look up and breathe deeply and relax and remember, as Mary Oliver puts it, you too were put on this earth to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. Coffee. I am a coffee snob. I have a stovetop espresso maker, and so, every morning that first sip of my almond milk latte, my kids know the rule is don't talk to mom until her second cup. So number 4 on my list, warm breezes. When it's just that right temperature, when it's not too hot and it's not too cold, and it just feels like the whole universe is kissing you. Fresh produce. I'm excited for the first asparagus. Fruit from the farmer's market in the summer. There's just something, how can you not savor? The feel of sand or equally damp grass underneath my bare feet. That's number 6 on my list. Number 7, the taste of the air in the cedar grove. I swear it heals me every time. The smell of a baby's head. Toddler jokes. I just spent time with my 2 nieces. They're both 4, and I'm telling you, they are hilarious. And love is number 10 on my list. In both the giving and the receiving, it's the most miraculous thing in the world. The list goes on, and I know that you all have your own lists. There's Judy Andrews' list, raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. My colleague Victoria Safford muses, what if there were a universe, a cosmos that began in shining blackness, out of nothing, out of fire, out of a single silent breath? And into it came billions and billions of stars, stars beyond imagining, and near one of them a world, a blue-green world so beautiful that learned clergymen could not even speak about it cogently, and brilliant scientists, in trying to describe it, began to sound like poets with their physics, with their mathematics, their empirical, impressionistic musing. What if there were a universe in which a world was born out of a smallish star, and into that world at some point flew red-winged blackbirds, and into it swam sperm whales, and into it came crocuses and wind to lift the tiniest hairs on naked arms in spring when you run out to the mailbox. And into it at some point came onions out of soil, and came Mount Everest, and also the coyote we've been seeing in the woods about a mile from here just after sunrise in these mornings when the moon is full. The very scent of him makes his brother, our dog, insane with fear and joy, an ancient inbred memory. Into that world came animals and elements and plants and imagination, the mind and the mind's eye. If such a universe existed and you noticed it, what would you do? What song would come out of your mouth? What prayer? What praises, what sacred offering, what whirling dance, what religion, and what reverential gesture would you make to greet that world every single day you were in it? Every single day. Every single day. Except that every single day, we also have to face the reality that life is not all sunshine and roses. Here is a partial list, again in no particular order, of the things that I feel like I should be doing something about. Global warming. Holy crow. It scares me to think about how our climate is changing and our government and how slowly our government is responding. Poverty, the holes in our social safety net, especially here in Idaho, are just huge and getting huger. The epidemic of gun violence. Now, how many of us went to the march yesterday? It was amazing. Those youth, they give me hope, even as the cynical voice in the back of my skull still whispers about how much money the NRA has. We can't stop. We have to keep caring. Racism, police violence in particular. Can we take a moment and remember the name of Stephon Clark, the unarmed Sacramento father of 2 who was shot and killed in his grandmother's backyard this week? Hate crimes, that's number 5 on my list. The mosque in Bellevue was burned down again this past week, 2nd time in the last year. Disability rights, LGBTQ rights, Cripes human rights. The partisan divide, sexism and violence against women. And oh yeah, there's that specter of war. My brother, an Iraq veteran who now runs a peace action nonprofit, told me when I was visiting this past week that John Bolton is a psychopath and that we all should be scared into action about that as well. To which I can only say, what can I do? I could go on, and I know that you have lists of your own. And our faith, our principles, they pretty much tell us we have to care about all of it. As my colleague Meg Barnhouse puts it, my experience of the principles is that they're deeply demanding. The first one asks me to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, which means that I can no longer subscribe to the cheerful Calvinist doctrine of the total depravity of human nature. It sounds grim, but really, if you're in fact starting with a totally depraved nature, the opportunities for self-congratulation abound. Hey, I didn't knock over a 7-Eleven this afternoon. Even though money's pretty tight, I'm doing pretty well. Now I have to struggle with the worth and dignity of people who do unspeakably awful things, whereas the doctrine of total depravity made that one a no-brainer. I'm supposed to value the democratic process, hearing the voice of everyone equally, allowing everyone to have a say. The UU principles are demanding enough to make me whine. For those who feel they are thin gruel, I have a suggestion. Let's stick something at the end of every principle that will stop people from smiling and nodding comfortably as they're read. Instead of adding in the bathtub or between the sheets, how about attaching beginning in our homes and congregations? Then we'd be faced with affirming things like the goal of peace, liberty, and justice for all, beginning in our homes and congregations. Everyone who has raised children knows that peace is often at odds with liberty. And that justice demands a disturbance of the peace. To put those 3 together in one principle is outrageous and lovely. It's easier to think about working toward them in a global context than in the context of Cheerios and pajamas, car keys, and cleaning up one's bedroom. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, beginning in our homes and congregations, is a sobering ideal. I don't know about you, but I've sat in meetings about right relations and seen people get testy with one another. Some of the nastiest behavior I've seen was long ago at a community workshop for peace activists. Lao Tzu, quoted in the back of our hymn book, says, "Peace in the world begins with peace in the home, which begins with peace in the heart." If I start with my own heart, the demands of our principles get even heavier. Peace and compassion in my heart, justice too, freedom as well, affirming the worth of every person all the time, not only with my words and my behavior, but in my secret heart. If we added in the heart to the principles, they might as well just say, "Be Jesus," and be done with it. I'm sorry I even brought it up. So as Unitarian Universalists, it does feel like we have to care about everything. We don't have to have the same opinions or to support the same strategies, but it does seem as if we need to pay attention to it all. And it can be exhausting, right? Sometimes I get overwhelmed. I feel stretched too thin. I start to resent the requests that people make of me. I start to dread each time the phone rings, each time I hear the ping of the email or the text. I start to think, I have to do it because if I don't, no one else will. Anyone else have those thoughts? Now, I spent some time a couple weeks ago reflecting on what happens that pulls me into that place of it has to be me. Turns out I have a bit of a hero complex. And I get hooked. And I start to think that I need to prove to the world that I can do hard and impressive things, because if I can do those hard and impressive things, that means that I am worthy of love. Now, I have done and will continue to do hard and impressive things, but my worthiness has nothing to do with what I can do or with what I do. My faith teaches me that worth is inherent. I am worthy of love because I am. Love isn't something I have to earn by being important. It's something I experience when I allow myself to be vulnerable. So remembering that is what allows me to unhook that hero complex. And that's why these words by my colleague Ashley Haran touch me so deeply. She says, "You are loved beyond belief. You are enough. You are precious. Your work and your life matter, and you are not alone. You are a part of a great cloud of witnesses, living and dead, who've insisted that this beautiful, broken world of ours is a blessing, worthy of both deep gratitude and fierce protection. Our ancestors and our descendants are beckoning us, compelling us onward toward greater connection, greater compassion, greater commitment to one another and to the earth. Together, we are resilient and resourceful enough to say yes to that call, to make it our life's work in 1,000 million billion different ways, knowing that we can do no other than bind ourselves more tightly together and throw ourselves into the holy work of showing up again and again, to be part of building that world of which we dream, but which we have not seen. In January, I spent a week in Florida for continuing education. I had the extraordinary privilege of learning from Tracy Blackman, the Executive Minister of Justice and Witness Ministries for the United Church of Christ, and one of the leaders in the Black Lives Matter movement. Our track was entitled Prophetic Witness in the Public Square, and I fully expected her to be all fire and brimstone. I expected her to teach us effective strategies for political actions, how to organize protests, how to talk to the media, maybe how to build coalitions, just very, practical. And instead, she just shared her stories. And what became clear over the course of the week was that everything she does flows out of her deep love for her people and her deep faith in God. She wasn't interested in offering us advice or teaching us strategies. Rather, she invited us to be in touch with our own deep faith. She invited us to lead with our hearts. She told us about her own mistakes, urged us to embrace humility and risk. She said it's not about doing activism the right way, it's about being willing to learn, willing to be touched, changed, and transformed by our relationships. She urged us to show up, to stay present, to listen, and to keep learning. And ultimately, it all came back to love. Love for ourselves, love for other people, love for the world. Love leads to compassion. Compassion inspires us to act with courage, and acts of courage save the world. Our efforts to save the world are strengthened and sustained by the time we spend savoring the world. The most effective activism comes from a place of genuine love, appreciation, and caring. To save the world, we must savor it, because it's that savoring that gives us impetus and energy and motivation and direction. When I remember this, when I'm living this way, I'm strong and committed, I'm peaceful and determined, my life unfolds almost without effort, and the things that I do to make a difference come easily. The prevailing tone is joy and generosity, and I feel in my heart, in my bones, that rhythm that our reading spoke of, the pulse of life, that sure and steady rhythm. Everything is good and right. So I tell you now, our worthiness has nothing to do with what we can do or what we do. Our faith teaches us that worth is inherent. We are worthy of love. Love isn't something we have to earn. It's something we experience when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. So we show up. Again and again, we savor life. We love and we let ourselves be loved. We trust the pulse, the rhythm of life. We trust one another and the process of collective evolution that we are a part of. So as for saving the world, it's just an inevitable byproduct. So be it, and so may it be.